my name is Erin and welcome to my channel where we learn how to upcycle, sew, and slow down. Today I want to show you my top 5 favorite embroidery stitches that are really easy to do. You can incorporate these into projects that you're doing like mending clothing, working on hoop art. There's so many different ways, but these are my easiest and favorite stitches. So go ahead and grab a needle, grab some embroidery thread, and let's go. Since this is very beginner and very basic, I also want to teach you how to tie a knot in your thread. I find this to be the easiest and most secure way. So once you've gone ahead and put your thread through the eye of the needle, you're going to grab the other ends. You're going to take the needle and place it on the top of the thread. So the thread should be in between your finger and the needle. You're going to guide the needle almost to the end. Then you're going to wrap around the thread just a couple times. Go ahead and pinch that in your hands. Grab the top of the needle and pull all the way down to the bottom. Then, as you can see, we have a nice secure knot. Super simple. Let's go ahead and start with the back stitch. Back stitch is great for outlining projects or for fine detail. You're going to start about a 1/4 inch away from the beginning of your thread. Go ahead and push that down, and instead of reaching back and pulling your thread all the way through, you're just going to guide that up just like that and pull it through. Then you're going to place your needle back at the beginning of this stitch, push it through, guide it through, so there's about a 1/4 of an inch space, and pull that through. Once again, push that needle down, guide it through about a 1/4 of an inch, and pull. I love how nice and neat and seamless this is. I also love the fact that I don't have to push the needle through, pull it, and then push it back up. This leaves for a much more straight and even stitch. Next is the straight stitch. So to be honest, the straight stitch is pretty much the back stitch. It's very similar. However, there are some variations you can do with it to make it look a little bit different. You can make your stitch a little bit longer. I like to put just a little bit of space in between my stitches. Just like that. So with the back stitch, I would go ahead and push back down here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that space because I like the way it looks. So I'm just going along and I am grabbing little bits of fabric. And that leaves a nice space in between the stitches for our straight stitch. So next we have our satin stitch, which I've already started here just to give you an idea of what it looks like. A satin or damask stitch is a series of flat stitches that is used to entirely cover the background of the fabric or area that you are working on. And the direction they go in really depends on your pattern. You could be making a leaf, you could be stitching something diagonal or something straight, but the idea is that these stitches sit extremely close together so they cover the entire area of the fabric that you're working on. So I already have 2 stitches going here, and I'm going to feed my needle in. You want to get it really nice and close to that last stitch on the bottom. Pull that through. And then we're going to go back into the top very, very close. And pull that through. As you can see, those 3 stitches are very close together. In fact, they kind of almost look like 1 stitch, but they are actually 3. And you can continue to do that all the way down the fabric, like I said, in the pattern or direction that you are going in. And that is our satin stitch. And before we move on to our next stitch, I just really wanted to show you that satin stitch. I did a few extra ones, and you can see just how nice and tight and close that is together, and what a beautiful stitch that is, and how it covers the background so lovely. So next is the elusive French knot, which in embroidery many people think is the hardest. And it really is not that difficult to master. You just need to practice a little. You do need both hands for it, so you'll either need a stand that your hoop can sit up on, or as I start the stitch, I'll usually just go ahead and lay that down. A French knot can be great for buds and flowers, and just really adding a nice texture to your piece. So what we want to do is we want to point our needle to the left. Now I am left-handed, so if you are right-handed, you're going to be doing this the opposite way. Wrap your thread around the top of the needle twice. That is standard for French knots. Sometimes I will be extra brave and do 3 or even 4 loops, but we're going to start with 2. Then carefully pick up your hoop, and we're going to take that needle and we're going to push it down really close to where you began. Okay. Most important thing in all of this is that you are holding on to this thread. Very, very important. Otherwise your knot will not look proper. Make sure that you're not holding too tight. Otherwise it will be really hard to get the thread through. So I'm a bit of a master at this, so it really is best to have this hoop up on a stand or something. But as I'm holding on to this, I'm going to push the needle down. And I'm going to go ahead and grab it from the back, still holding. I'm going to go ahead and pull that through. And after we get down almost to the end, I'm going to let go and pull all the way through. As you can see, that made a nice little beautiful knot. And like I said, these are great for creating flowers. If you have a stem down here, you create a bunch of these for the bud, or you can just use it in textures as you wish. But that is one of my favorite stitches, the French knot. The final stitch I'll be showing you is the split stitch. The split stitch is an excellent filler stitch. I really like using it for curves. It tends to handle curves or circles really well. When you're stitching, you want to make sure that your stitches are fairly close together. If you make them too long with no anchor in between them, they're going to be real loose. So if you have something planned where, you're making it long and the stitch is nice and tight and taut, and that's the way you've planned it out, that's fine. But most of these stitches, you want to make sure that they're fairly short. So for the split stitch, we're going to go ahead and guide our needle down and pull through. And when we come up, we want to come up in about the center of that stitch. It can be a little bit tricky at first, and we want to split the thread right there. It doesn't have to be exact. This is 6 strands of floss, and it would be very difficult to make sure that it goes exactly in between. But you want to make sure that it's centered as much as possible, and you're getting it right pretty much in the center of the floss. Pull that through. Then you're going to go ahead and put your needle down again in your next stitch. Again, bring that up right in about the center. Make sure that you grab, whoops, make sure that you try and grab equal amounts of thread. And let's do one more. You can't really see it that well, but this is actually a really pretty stitch once it gets going. And like I said, if you're using it for a curve or like a circle or something, it's fairly nice. As you can see, it kind of has a little bit of a braided effect. So that is our final in our series of my favorite stitches. I hope you've enjoyed. Really, as long as you know the basics of any of these, you are set to go when you start creating. And practice makes perfect. Grab yourself a hoop and just a sample piece of muslin like I have here, and a needle and some embroidery thread, and you can get started and practice with your stitches before you start on your project. And then you'll be good to go. Thanks for stopping by my channel.